Yacht crew, listen up. I know firsthand how limited a vessel's medical insurance can be. This is why you need reliable medical coverage. Moore Dixon offers comprehensive global insurance tailored for yachties, covering everything from emergencies to routine checkups with flexible options and a single point of contact. Moore Dixon has been voted best health and medical insurance by captains and crew, including myself. Don't wait until the unexpected happens. Get covered today. Visit mdbl.im or email them at inquiries@mdbl.im for a free quote. Hi, everyone. Today we are joined by Sam Stewart. Welcome, Sam, to the show. Founder of Relief Crew Foundation and a former yachty with a vision to help yachting professionals use their skills to make a real impact in this world. Relief Crew bridges the gap between yachting and humanitarian efforts, turning good intention into action. So welcome to the show, Sam. I'm so excited to talk about you, bringing a little bit of sunshine among all the darkness that we talk about in the Uncensored show. So welcome.
Hi, Marién. Thank you so much. It's really nice to be sitting here with you.
Yes. So let's start at the beginning. Like, what inspired you to create Relief Crew Foundation? What is Relief Crew Foundation for those that are hearing about it for the first time? And how did your own time in yachting shape this vision that you're actually now embodying?
Yeah, for sure. So Relief Crew Foundation is a non-profit platform that is connecting yacht crew with humanitarian projects. So we look for projects that need some skilled volunteers, and then we match those with yacht crew that are looking for something more meaningful to do with their time off. And so this has sort of come about. I spent nearly 10 years on and off working on yachts. And at some point towards the end of my yachting stint, I made a beeline to work or to volunteer for a summer in a refugee camp. And I just had I'd had enough with boats for a while, and this had been on my radar for a little bit, and I eventually made the call to make it happen. And it was one of the best summers of my life, to be honest. And it sounds really weird that could be possible in a refugee camp, but that was the experience that I had. And while I was there, it became apparent quite quickly that the skills yacht crew have and inherent for people that have spent a few years on boats were really transferable into this humanitarian environment. The location couldn't be further from a yacht, but there were so many crossovers, and the skills that yacht crew have, even when it comes down to just logistics and getting things done and being organized in that sense, were really helpful in that kind of location. And at the same time, I had a lot of crew that were messaging me being like, "Hey, Sam, we've seen that you're doing this thing. Like, what are you up to in a refugee camp? Like, how can we get involved in something like that?" And there was a lot of interest from buddies from within that yachting community. And I had a really tough time, I think, finding the right NGO or the right charity to volunteer with. I'd really had to stick with that and do a lot of research to find one that I knew that was credible and trustworthy, and I could find one that sort of was a good fit for my skill set. If I was going to put a couple of weeks or as it was a summer into volunteering, I wanted to know that I was going somewhere that was going to be a good use of my time. So there was kind of this a bit of a gap I saw with needing skilled volunteers in these locations, buddies that were looking for something to do, and an opportunity to I guess be that middleman to look for those NGOs and connect yacht crew with them. And so, in a nutshell, that's kind of where Relief Crew was born.
Amazing! I just love it all. Love it, love it, love it. So it's interesting that you say that immediately when you were in the refugee camp and doing your volunteer gig, you saw how our skills on yachts can be transferable. And that's really interesting because a lot of people, when they're about to leave the industry or they want to leave the industry, but they're kind of scared because they're always saying, well, what have I learned? Like, what skills do I really have? How am I going to bring this into like the real world, right? So it's really amazing to hear that actually we have, I mean, I already know this, we have a lot of transferable skills, but it's amazing to hear that we can even use it beyond what we think we can, which is a real impact in the world, right? In the humanitarian efforts. Can you give us real examples or share some examples of how yacht crew have transferred the skills into this humanitarian effort that you're, supporting us to help with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, our last two projects were largely connected with sanitation. So one of them, we were in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco after an earthquake had basically destroyed most of the villages there. So the locals were now living in tents because their homes had been bowled. And they were at the point where, like, okay, there was no toilets available in most of the villages. So we were there building toilets, and it was the same situation. Well, the same solution, I guess, for a different situation. Our last project was in Ghana, in a village that has never had access to sanitation, and we were there working alongside the locals to build toilets. And in both of these cases, we had engineers with us, and it's bread and butter, right? The plumbing side of things for engineers to step in and do that. In both cases, the one in Ghana especially, the engineering side of things, okay, it's not absolute rocket science, but it was a case of a community had never seen that before. They had not been exposed to plumbing, so the types of toilets that we were putting in was new for them. And our goal was to work alongside a community. We're not just going in and saying, hey, you're missing this, or life could be better if you had this, and we're going to do that. This was in both situations, projects that had arisen from a need from within the community. And so working alongside them, but by the end of it, in both cases, there'd been that skill set transfer from the engineers that we had that have said, working alongside, this is the way this is the way that you can do it. And by the end of the projects, we've completely stepped back, and it's up to the local community then that they can go forward. They have the skills to go and do it now, and then that transfers on and on and on. So that was a very simple example of engineering, but around that there's also a lot of logistics that go into both of those projects. Morocco, for example, we were working in a lot of different villages throughout the region, and it was like, okay, in 4 days we're going to be in this village. Let's make sure that we've got enough cement and sand and toilets and doors and timber to make sure that when we arrive, we can hit the ground running and we're not just there twiddling our thumbs. And this is stuff that's, very similar to working on a yacht. You're constantly making sure that 5 steps ahead is taken care of. So when, if it's the guests that arrive here, or if you're in a shipyard, this is happening here. It's all just bang, 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 bang. There's no delay. So it's these kind of inherent skills that have been pretty valuable so far. Our next project that is coming up in a few weeks' time, we're going to Greece to connect with a refugee camp there. There is a local NGO that's looking to set up a skills build training centre. So Greece and Lesbos in particular, the island that we're on, has a massive shortage of workers in the hospitality sector. And then you've got this community in the camp that have been forced to flee their homes. They've left behind jobs, families, loved ones, and now they're here trying to start afresh. And once their refugee status has been approved, they're going to be looking for work as well. So we're taking an interior team to set up different trainings for service, housekeeping, barista training, kitchen prep, all these types of skills that are obviously very, very common for the interior team on yachts. And again, it's transferring those to people that genuinely need them to get a leg up for the next stage of their life. So Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of communities in need, and there's no shortage of ways that we can, split the skills that yacht crew have to helping those communities. So it's really exciting, actually, and it's kind of a blank canvas in so many ways to look at, okay, what are the skills yacht crew have, and where can we apply them?
Amazing. And I want to ask you, so I mean, obviously, this one new volunteering opportunity that you have coming up is very specific towards the skills you want to give this community, which are based in hospitality skills, which is amazing for the interior crew that can come in and really share what they know. But my question would be more if the volunteer gig is not that, and it's building toilets or is doing something else, can an interior person go on support, or do you have specific skills that, like, for specific jobs, or anybody, doesn't matter where you are in the branch of the tree of the yacht, you can actually step in and just support, in any way that you can?
For sure, yeah. I mean, the big thing for us is finding the right people for the right project. That the number one goal is to make sure that the project is a success. So it's making sure that you have enough people to make sure that that's going to happen. So like any team, you have a few key people that are going to be instrumental in making that happen. But there's always going to be a case that we need numbers to do whatever it is, whether it's slinging concrete or moving things around, whatever. There's so many opportunities for that, in Ghana. I think it's interesting, also just because someone is interior or someone is deck crew, like, they're definitely not pigeonholed to that type of work, In Ghana, we had Kendall with us, who was a purser, and she mixed more concrete than anyone else on the whole project. You couldn't get her off the spade. So yeah, there's definitely no bias between what department you work on board.
And I think it's also important for people to know that it's not only the skills that you have learned through yachting, but also a lot of us do have extra skills before we even join yachting that could be really helpful in whatever situation you're placed in. So that's also something to remind ourselves of. So let's talk about, volunteering isn't just about helping others, right? It can have a really life-changing impact for the person that's doing it. I mean, it did for you, right? Like that's the whole foundation of this foundation, right? Like your story. And have you seen how relief crew impacts the crew who get involved?
I think there's a few commonalities amongst yacht crew that come. I mean, of course, everyone has their own story and their own takeaways from each project, but on the whole, I think it is easy as a yacht crew member to get caught up in this yachting bubble, and to get swept up in the industry and the environment that you're in. That's pretty common. So to come and volunteer in a location that is, completely not yachting, and with a community that is in genuine need, it can't help but be a grounding experience, to be it's a massive reminder, I think, of how lucky we have it. And I'm not talking specifically lucky to be working on a boat, but it's just lucky for the majority of people that have been born into a country that is safe and secure, with a government that has your back and is supporting you, because that's not the reality for millions of people around the planet. And I think that those are some of the massive takeaways that definitely yacht crew have from this is, we're in an incredibly lucky position. And, to experience that firsthand is, it's the best reminder that you're going to get of that. And it's the best kind of reset I think you can have from that point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a bit of a reality check because like you said, we're in this little bubble. And yeah, is not that it's not real. It's a version of life, but there's a lot of other versions that we're not being exposed to. So we already know, we talked about the yachting is super intense, burnout, isolation, stress, the real struggles that we go through. And have you seen volunteering help crew reset mentally? Like, how does stepping into humanitarian work shift their mindset? Because I'm kind of wondering that myself, because I've been through that, and I kind of wonder, would have that really helped me, to kind of like do that mental reset that I needed so much?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the really special things about volunteering is that, it's in the name, you're there because you want to, no one's forcing you to be there. And especially when you strip away any kind of monetary incentive or any kind of perk, you're there, you're giving your time, you're not being rewarded in a material sense. So there's no way that you can say, oh, hey, the person on the boat next door gets 100 euros more a month, or they get this many more days per, that whole comparison of what they get and what I get, that all of that goes out the window. And when you're in a place and you've decided that, okay, I'm here, I'm giving my time, I'm giving my skills, it's incredibly freeing to do that, I think. And then it allows you to just focus on what's happening, the task at hand, because there's no other distraction from that point of view. And, a lot of the projects that we're working on, you're working big days as well. You're outside often, you're in the sun, it's in fresh air, as well as the fact that you're working with, communities in need. But one thing that I didn't really expect, but has sort of popped up, is that it's also a massive break from your phone, because you're so focused on what's going on, and at times in places that maybe don't necessarily have great access to internet. It's a complete distraction from that, and obviously you're nowhere near the yachting industry. So, and in terms of a real break, it's an incredible reset from a mental side of things. And there's been that many studies that have come out around the positives that are connected with volunteering as well. I think the Harvard 80-year study that's been going on, for so long, says that the people at the end of their life that are the happiest are the ones that have had the strongest connections with friends, and the ones that have had a connection with helping other people. And there's no the science is there behind it as well. So yeah, there's so many positive spin-offs for crew themselves.
Absolutely. Yes to all of it. And I think we all have experienced that, where you are generally wanting to be at service, whatever it is, even opening a door, because you wanted to open the door, not because you had to open the door. And people maybe somebody like walks in, doesn't say thank you, and it doesn't bother you, right? Because you were wanting to generally be at service. And versus like, oh, I have to do this, or I'm opening this to get something out of it. And I think when you do a volunteer, work, whatever it is, I think it really helps you shape your values, and what's really important to you and what's not. And definitely, yeah, it just helps you to ground from the inside out, I guess. So who can volunteer? Is it only yacht crew who are working on board, people that freelance, people that maybe are brokers, or because obviously the yachting industry is not just yacht crew, right? It's massive. We have brokers, we have management, we have people on shore support. So who can actually join relief crew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. In the first instance, it's set up for yacht crew. And it doesn't matter whether they're full-time or temporary or whatever. But going back to what we said before, it's about having the right people for the right project. So, if there's space left over on a project and there is someone from in the wider industry that has a skill set that would be a genuine value add to a project, then absolutely we'd look at having them on board. Yeah, for sure.
How can owners and the programs of each vessel can actually benefit from people doing this type of volunteer work, and how can they support the crew to actually go do it? Because a lot of the times we are encouraged to do the opposite, not take vacation, not go to that wedding, like just stick to the program and, give me all you have until you have nothing left. So how can we start moving into a different direction?
Yeah, and I think that whole model of give me everything you've got until there's nothing left, and then we'll just replace you is slowly being moved aside, thankfully. And that's one of the cool things about the model that sort of revealed itself is there are benefits to every moving part of it, and obviously yacht owners can benefit from that as well. So the idea is that if yacht crew are going to go and spend their time volunteering on a project, if they work on a boat where the owner is connected with philanthropy and they're looking to support their crew to do that, whether that's helping them with flights or accommodation or helping them actually fund the project, then this can all come back to the yacht owner in a various sort of ways. So, for example, yacht owners get approached hundreds of times a year to support this or donate to that or, buy a ticket to this. And I think often they would have no idea where that money really goes. But, when it's their own crew that go off and are working on a project and they can see some video come back and some photos and that sort of thing of what's actually happening, it's a genuine connection to their own philanthropy. And it's also, it means that when yacht crew come back, if they're sitting on the swim platform and a crew member that's been on a project is there as well, it's a nice thing that they can talk about and connect over if the yacht owner is that way inclined. To add to that, it's a reason for that crew member to come back as well. If volunteering is something that is important to a crew member and they're working on a boat where they feel the yacht owner is supporting that, that's a reason to stick around. We know that retention has massive problems in this industry. So if there's something that can, entice a crew member to stick around for, at least another rotation, which is, not that much to ask really, then being involved and being supported in a program like this is definitely something that, the crew members that are involved in programs like this, when they come back to the boat, they're going to be a positive influence on the boat for sure. I think if you've been to an environment where a community is really struggling and you've worked alongside them for a couple of weeks and you return to the boat and your favorite milk isn't in the fridge, you're no longer complaining about that. And that's, that spreads through the crew as well. Again, we can kind of lose touch on board the boat of what's important and what's actually realistic. So it's that grounding that comes back, and that can be infectious. It can spread through the crew. As in the same way that you have one bad crew member can really set things off, a good crew member can do just the opposite. So it's a massive positive. In terms of crew sticking around for longer, it means that the captain or the head of department is spending less time looking for new crew. You're spending less money on HR and recruitment. So it's actually bringing the bottom line of the whole boat's running costs down. And to take it a step further, if your crew or if the boat is one that's connected to philanthropy or a program like this, the whole boat becomes more desirable to work on. So now you start to have your pick of the really good crew, let's say. So yeah, there's a whole different raft of benefits that can play off for the boat.
Absolutely. So I have two questions. How long usually are these volunteer gigs? I have seen on volunteer websites, usually you have to pay to go volunteer, and usually they ask for like a month. And sometimes I was like, well, I will do a week, but I don't want to give my whole month to that because I do want to go see family and all this stuff or whatever you want to do, right? So how does that work with you guys?
So to start with, our platform is completely free for crew to connect with a volunteering project, and free in the sense that we don't take a fee from it. I don't believe it should cost. People shouldn't pay to come and volunteer. Volunteers still have to take care of their expenses, so flights, accommodation, and food. But as you touched on, there's so many projects out there that you have to then pay on top of for the privilege of being part of. And that was something that right from the beginning I was so against. I think if people have the skills to be a genuine value add on the ground, then and there's no need for like a payment program. So yeah, that's something that we're pretty staunch about, and will forever be staunch about that as well. So 2 weeks is kind of typical at the moment. I mean, the last one we did in Ghana, we were there for 17 days. There was a couple of crew that were there for the whole time from start to finish, and there were a couple of crew that had said, hey, I can only make it for the first 10 days or the last 7 or whatever it was. And we worked with that as well. I'm aware that, people have lots of different things going on in their lives. I think 2 weeks is a good amount of time, because the first week you're starting to understand the project and to see what's up, and then you start to get a flow on, and it can be a little bit too short to suddenly be like, I'm out of it. And then, by the second week, because our projects are so geared to working alongside communities, you've really started to build a relationship or rapport with some of the people there. And I think most of the volunteers that have been with us before will say that, a week would have potentially been too short, just as you start to make these, really nice connections. And you want to, once you start on one of these projects, you do actually really want to see it come to an end. That being said, we're open to chat, so it's the right people for the right job. And we're happy to discuss.
Do you guys support maybe with literature, or even how to approach an owner that don't know about Relief Crew, but that is interested in this type of ventures, maybe the purser or the chief steward or the captain? Can you give them support on how to approach that, to bring that into the program, into the vessel?
Definitely, yeah. So we've done that with a few boats already. And it's basically, of course, every single boat is different, and every yacht owner is different, and it completely depends on the setup. But for sure, we have a few different ways that and things that we can present to yacht owners to show, hey, this would actually be a benefit for you to be involved, and this is what it would mean for the crew, and so on and so forth. So yeah, very open to chatting with captains, heads of departments, to talk about, how could this be a fit for your yacht, and how could we go forward with that?
Amazing. So you said that the next project, it's all about hospitality and bringing those skills to the refugee camp. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And is that already full? Like the whole, or are you still looking for volunteers?
Not yet. We have a lot of people have applied for this.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which is really cool. I've been blown away by the amount of support we've had, and it shows on this project as well. So we're still finalizing the team for that. So, there is still opportunity to be involved in it. Absolutely. On top of the training center that we're establishing, we're also going to build a playground in the refugee camp while we're there. And so we're also looking for a couple more people that are handy with a drill and, have some sort of construction background. They don't need to be a master builder, but, know their way around power tools is going to be helpful.
And for any crew member that wants to be part of it, what is the first step?
To reach out to us, and that can happen either through our website, reliefcrewfoundation.org, or through our Instagram, which is Relief Crew Foundation. And the easiest way is, just to connect through there. And we're very open to chat. Once you connect through there, you'll be sort of guided on a little pathway that, helps us connect and tells you about what the next project is and the skills that are needed and that sort of thing. But you can always reach out and shoot us a message we're pretty friendly.
I bet you are. So for those of you that are watching and want to reach out, just click on the links below of this video, and then you'll be connected to Sam and the Relief Crew Foundation. I mean, I am so in gratitude that you are doing this, that you had that aha moment, that the penny dropped in that moment, and that you're giving back, and that you saw the gap that you could bring between these two worlds that look so different, yet it's really the same world, So thank you so much for all the efforts and what you're doing, not only for obviously the humanitarian effort that you're doing, but also what you're doing for us in the yachting community, which is so, so important. You helping us ground, helping us kind of like come back to, reality check, and just really giving back, which I feel like anybody can say that when you give back, you feel better. When you're at service, it just makes sense. So if you're listening and you are wanting to be part of the Relief Crew Foundation, please reach out to Sam. There's always a project, I'm sure, going on. And don't think that you don't have skills. If you don't know your skills, I'm sure Sam will help you find what you can bring to the project. So anything else you want to share with us before we wrap it up?
I think you've nailed it on the head there, Marién. I mean, the yachting industry is in a really unique position where we really have an opportunity to make a genuine difference in the world. There are so many skills, there's so many resources, and there's a lot of influence within the industry that we work on. And put all together, we can make a meaningful impact. So yeah, reach out. Amazing. If you're thinking about it, let's chat.
Yeah, don't think, act. So click away, contact. All right, everybody, until next time. If you find today's discussion eye-opening and helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share. We would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, so reach out to us on social media via Yachting International Radio or Yachts Mermaids. Let's continue the conversation.